Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, Ronald, Bethea, and today's date is January the 30th, 2025, and we're all blessed still to be here and alive. Hello, Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black Americans. To our audience, and you know, if you join us on a regular basis, that call-in number is 646-668-2948. Once again, that call-in number is 646-668-2948. Ladies and gentlemen, if you join us on a regular basis, you know that this show is brought to you by the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative, LLC, which serves as an economic blueprint for self-reliance for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African-American-owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities, to utilize Black-owned farmlands and HBCU campuses to develop capacity and initiatives for renewable energy projects to bring down the underemployment of young African and African-American men and women locally, nationally, and throughout the diaspora, also to educate the African and African-American community about the economic impacts of climate change and the need for environmental education through Black Talk radio programs, such as Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. You also know, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been joining us over the years, that this show is brought to you every week by the Black Sports Legends Foundation, BSLF HBCU Solar Radio Talk Show Initiative, and you can get more information about that initiative by logging on to our website at positivechangepc.com. That's positivechangepc.com. You want to go over to our GoFundMe link, and you can click on that, and you can believe, ladies and gentlemen, we're not the greedy, but we simply are the needy, because we need help to try to improve our platform. We're in the process of changing platforms. This is our very, very last show coming from the platform of Blog Talk Radio. We are streaming via X, Twitter, and Facebook, and we also can be heard on YouTube, on our YouTube television, TV, radio, podcast network. That's what you're listening to over the World Wide Web. By logging on to positivechangepc.com, you will be with our online online digital radio, TV, podcast, radio network. And we are bringing you this program, and it's been truly a work of passion to do this as long as I've done this with no support coming from any other sources. And I have some very, very interesting information today, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have a scheduled guest, so once again, our call-in number is 646-668-2948. Now, as we know, last night, which we want to give our condolences and our prayers go out to those who lost their lives on the plane and helicopter crash here at Reagan National, here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. This was a very unfortunate incident. I worked for almost 44 years in the taxi cab and limousine industry, and we have crossed those bridges. We crossed them one time. We crossed them 10,000 times in 44 years, providing service as a independent owner-operator of my own limousine and taxi cab service here in Washington, D.C. So, ladies and gentlemen, we take a moment of silence. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me this morning on the platform of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. Now, there's been a lot of moving parts and a lot of things going on this week, ladies and gentlemen, and we know that I refer to the gentleman as COVID-45 plus 2 with 34 felony counts coming directly at you. Most folks refer to him as elect President Donald Trump. Now, he signed some executive orders, and one of those executive orders that he signed froze the funding of $1.7 trillion. Let me repeat myself. $1.7 trillion of funding, which $96.7 billion were contracts that have been signed between municipal, state, county, municipal governments, nonprofits, and other vetted entities for funding, and this has impacted all the spending for the Build Back Better, which had 66,000 projects nationwide, bridges, roads, water, sewer systems replacements, you name it. Those contracts have already been inked and signed. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, under EPA, we had something called the Greenhouse Gas Initiative Fund, which had $27 billion in that for helping to develop and to grow green banks here to finance renewable energy projects to combat climate change. Also under that same initiative was a program, which was a pilot program, started here in Washington, D.C. by Mr. Ted Trayview, who is now a member of the D.C. Public Service Commission and former director of the D.C. Utilities, DCSEU, which refers to as the D.C. Utility Service. This sounds like a D.C. government agency, but is actually a private entity, which has served since 2011 as the entity that the Department of Energy and Environment in Washington, D.C. contracted to be responsible for contracting, vetting, and paying contractors who participated in doing rooftop installments and commercial installs inside the District of residential and commercial installs inside the District of Columbia for those entities and citizens who have qualified for the Solar for All program. And we're going to talk about the Solar for All program here in Maryland because I have some information concerning the Maryland Solar for All program kickoff meeting, which was held yesterday morning. And I was one of the participants who, in fact, did hear, and I'm going to bring quite a bit of information, and we're going to raise some issues around some of the information that on this platform that I saw yesterday. But we're going to start our show off today, ladies and gentlemen, by talking about what the governor of Pennsylvania has done, and in his actions have saved some 65 million consumers in 13 states, Columbia, some $21 billion in electricity rate hikes over the next 2 years, 2025 and 2026. So to give you a little background information on what was taking place as Trump was signing these executive orders and putting this information out about with executive orders which were totally illegal as it relates to having the authority to overrule the House and the Senate, which makes up our Congress, because all of this funding has been passed by Congress and approved by Congress. So, with that being said, when the freeze was first announced that they were going to freeze all funding for 21 days, this is what was playing out as it relates here at our federal, we call it the Federal Regulation Commission here in Washington, D.C. is referred to as FERC. A recent article, which was written in Evergreen Action, these authors laid out the scenario of which the PJM, who they are and who they impact. So let's give a little background to that. The PJM is a interconnection organization, which is an LLC that runs the electrical grid for the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia, parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, and North Carolina. Was raising the energy prices for homeowners and businesses, which would have taken place in June of this year. 30% rate hike. The question becomes why? Because the PJM is not connecting enough new energy to the grid fast enough, causing a shortfall in reliable power, skyrocketing the annual energy auction prices. The shortfall is largely the fault of the PJM and the energy and utility companies that tell it what to do and stands to profit from these higher prices. Talking about the fossil fuel industry with natural gas, coal, and oil, which has a grip over the working in collaboration with your public service commissions, with your state houses, with your public service commissions located in various counties and the state. They are the ones that we need to be paying attention to as it relates to what is the PJM and why we should be paying attention to the PJM. Now, regional transmission organizations like PJM are responsible for managing the operations of the electric grid. They entail manage the supply of energy from power plants, generators sold to local utilities, which they then provide to consumers. Transmission organizations run the electric grid. They hold regular auctions to make sure that enough power plants will be available to provide electricity to subsistence years. These transmission organizations, along with power companies, also manage the construction of large power lines, decide which proposed plants get hooked up to the interconnection, which means connecting it to the grid. If there's a wind or solar project or a power plant being built, it has to be uplinked to get that energy from point A to point B. This is the organization that they would have to apply to get that uplink done to the grid. Basically, PJM and the utility companies make many of the decisions that affect how much money people in their regions pay for electricity bills. That's the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we said this show is called Solar Now and the Future with its Economic Impact on Black America. Information that we were talking about in our intro. The PJM also holds regular auctions to determine which types of energy sources power our homes, whether those are affordable, renewable options, or polluting, expensive fossil fuels. That makes the PJM incredibly a powerful organization. While PJM makes the energy source decision, it ultimately, their customers is we're the ones who end up paying for them, the decisions that they make. And recently, the PJM has been making lousy decisions, like delaying the interconnection of wind and solar energy projects, increasing the energy to increase energy costs in the region for you to use. But it varies from state to state. You have 2% to 30%, which would have been an increase in Philadelphia, 10% increase in your monthly bill, and if you lived in Chicago, it's $7.50 to $10 per month. If you lived in New Jersey, it was $12 to $15. If you lived in Maryland, it could range from $4 to $21 a month. That could add up to just in 1 year, $252 million. Why is PJM raising prices? That was the question that was raised in this specific article. The skyrocketing prices, this year's energy auction resulted from the increased demand driven by data center development. Let's make that clear. Data center development. Anytime a data center is built in a state, it will impact between 15 to 20% increase in the whole state, because one data center can use as much as energy as it takes to power 1 million homes. I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. You can Google data centers and you can get the data and information for yourself. That is how much money and energy costs affiliated with these, what they call quantum computer centers, which are being constructed around the country. And we know that with the invention of AI and the other cryptocurrencies that are generated through a process called mining. And in order to be able to power those computers to do that, it takes a tremendous amount of energy. And these data centers is what's the driving force behind these rate increases. So we could have been looking at in Maryland a 30% hike behind the natural gas with another 20% hike behind this new data center that's coming into Prince George's County, Maryland. So we're going to unpack that a little later on in the show, ladies and gentlemen, as we begin to look at the Solar for All program here in the state of Maryland. Now, development of unreliable fossil fuels, further extreme weather, PJM's inability to approve the construction of new energy projects, 95% of which were clean energy to meet the demand. PJM is the worst among its peers when it comes to connecting new energy to the grid, and has the worst interconnection backlog in the country. Over 3,000 projects have been waiting for years to connect to the PJM grid and bring down the auction price. But PJM has entirely paused the interconnection. It's called a SKU since 2022. Of the 157,765 megawatts of projects processed, PJM since 2000, exactly 1 megawatt has gone into service. Now that is a disgrace, ladies and gentlemen. This is why our energy bills are so damn high. Since June of 2024, PJM has the slowest interconnection process of any grid operator in the country, with the average project waiting for over 5 years just to go ahead from PJM's start of construction. PJM must fix this interconnection queue, and also these thousands of energy projects must come online. Nearly all of these projects are waiting to be connected. 95% are clean energy and storage projects. We know that renewable energy sources like solar and wind are the cheapest for electricity, and even before the federal tax credits are cut costs by the additional 30 to 88%. This means PJM could be addressing its interconnections demands with affordable clean energy. Instead, ratepayers are paying the consequences of the inaction on their electric bills. PJM's decisions of making it heavily influenced by the voting members, primarily utility energy companies, and heavy secured on fossil fuel power plants. These companies have vested interest in protecting their profits from the competition of low-cost clean energy, and the PJM has worked together to prevent reforms. The PJM and these utilities are to blame for this crisis. Well, I mean, ain't like what they wrote. People didn't already, some kind of way, know or figure it out. When you looked at the fact, I'm looking at my gas bill here in Maryland, and I'm a resident in Prince George's County. Me and my wife, we are baby boomers, and we've been in this home 20 years. And the only thing in the house that we run off of electricity is our hot water heater. And I looked on my bill and saw that the transmission fee was $85 a month, and it had nothing to do with use. So I called the gas company because they switched to Washington National Gas from the other company that they were with. They didn't notify me that they were switching gas companies. But long and short, I asked the question, does distribution mean getting something from point A to point B, service of good, gentleman said, yes. I said, so what you telling me, y'all charging me $85 a month for the natural gas to flow through the pipes? He said, yeah. I said, sir, I don't mean no harm. I thought I was supposed to pay for what I use, not for the damn pipeline being built. So these are the things. I'm looking at $118 in taxes and fees. They don't have nothing to do with what we use in the house. So when you are in your 70s and you're on fixed income, all of this adds up, ladies and gentlemen, for everybody. But it really adds up for seniors because if you live long enough, something comes into play. It's called fixed income. I hope people are listening out there because this is not that. This hits home, real close to home for me because it hits home for me, and I know it hits home for many of you out there listening. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's count our blessings because on yesterday, press release drops, which was good news. Governor Shapiro reaches agreement with PJM to prevent unnecessary price hikes and save consumers over $21 billion in utility bills for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. So what I'm saying is Governor Westmore and another governor also filed a complaint to back up the complaint, which with the Federal Regulatory Commission here in Washington, D.C. So when they do something, knock on wood, and give them credit for what they do, because just like it's the good, bad, and the ugly, if you want to be the one who you make the rule and the buck stops with you, of you the chief, you the president, or you whoever, you the person in charge, it falls on your watch. So what I'm saying is when something comes down the pike like this, which people really need to know that this rate hike that they didn't know they were going to get hit with, they're not going to be hit with because of the actions of Governor Shapiro in the state of Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is our #1 energy producing state in the U.S. of A. A lot of people don't understand. They have natural gas, they got coal, they've got nuclear power plants. They got it all in Pennsylvania. So with that being said, we are blessed that this action was taken and that we're going to see some relief rather than getting hit again while these games are being played with the freezing of $96.7 billion. Now, the good news on that end is that we had something to take place with our attorney generals of 22 states who sued Trump's administration from withholding federal funding. And you want to see, ladies and gentlemen, how quick cause and effect. This lawsuit was filed on the 28th. The press release dropped the 28th. Trump backed up and did the moonwalk backwards on the 29th. And 72 million people who had their Medicaid and Medicare accounts shut down, they can now get back into their accounts. I had this telephone conversation with a young lady from the Maryland Clean Energy Center, and she said that the state of Maryland was waiting on $137 million. But we're going to talk about a specific program in Maryland called the Maryland Solar for All program. I have some serious concerns about how this is being rolled out. But as we say here on this platform, solar now and the future with its economic impact on Black America, we don't ask people to meet us here. We ask people to beat us here as we continue to move forward with bringing this platform to you every week. Now, you know that the show is still on the way, and we are still here broadcasting over the platform of Blog Talk Radio. And at the beginning of the show, I told you this will be our very, very, very last show that will be coming to you through this platform. We will hopefully be on the air next week, but we'll be broadcasting from another platform, and we'll be using some other distributions organizations other than rssfeed.com, because we are trying to work with various organizations, and when you're trying to sign up and do what you got to do to keep your platform going, you got a million folks out there doing the same thing, and everybody's talking left to right, but you need to find out what's coming straight at you down the middle. So when they give you policies about how you can cancel something in 30 days and they don't do that, it's a good sign that you go ahead and you cancel your subscription with those folks to find somebody else to deal business with, because people are only good as what they put on their website, because that's what they put on their website is what they say, because the website speaks for that entity or that individual who is supposed to be out here providing goods and services online. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a slight pause for the calls here on Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And remember that call-in number is 646-668-2948. And we'll be right back here on the platform Solar Now and the Future. We will pick up the Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the airways of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And you know I'm your host, Ronald, Bethea, and you know if you join us on a regular basis that the call-in number is 646-668-2948. Once again, that call-in number is 646-668-2948. And please remember to press 1 on your phone pad after dialing the call-in number, because you'll be in our green room, and we want to bring you right on into our living room so we can have this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, as we were just sharing with you things that have been taking place this week, I just spoke about the settlement between the governor of Pennsylvania, Joseph Shapiro, and the PJM interconnection organization that controls distribution of energy here in the Mid-Atlantic region. And we talked about why this shortfall exists in the main place. And the biggest thing is that they're not renewables. So when we begin to talk about renewable energy projects, and we begin to talk about the freezing of billions of dollars of programs which were not entitlement programs, but these are programs that were in fact signed off and funded by our Congress. Now, the Attorney General here in Maryland is Anthony Brown, and on yesterday was 28th, on Tuesday, this press release broke. Attorney General Anthony Brown joins 22 other state attorney generals in suing the Trump administration from withholding federal essential funding. The Trump administration policy would block trillions in funding for health, education, law enforcement, disaster relief, and other essential state programs. This came out of Baltimore, Maryland, from the Attorney General's office. Anthony Brown today joined the coalition of attorney generals. And I'm just curious what attorney generals were a part of that. We had the state of New York, California, Illinois, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington State, and Wisconsin. So that tells me while 45 plus 2 with 34 felony counts looking straight at you, administration backed up and did the moonwalk backwards, because Congress was not going to stand for this. They weren't going to have it, and the state attorney generals weren't going to have it. That's why they were in the court system already, because they knew that this was illegal and far-reaching, which the president does not have those powers. The new policies issued by the President's Office of Management and Budget, OBM, puts a indefinite pause on the minority of federal assistance to states. The policy would immediately jeopardize the state's programs to provide critical health and child care services to families in need, deliver support to public schools, combat hate crimes and violence against women, provide life-saving disaster relief to states, and more. Attorney General Anthony Brown, in coalition with attorney generals, are seeking a court order to immediately stop the enforcement of the OBGM policy and to preserve essential funding. And this is why there was a stay by a federal judge when these U.S. attorneys came together representing these many states, and it shows you the power of the states. Okay? So they backed up, and the freezes have come on. But people have to remain, this is a term it's called being very vigilant in this process. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the money still being able to go out to these entities. And as as I indicated, we're going to switch gears here, and we're going to start talk specifically about the state of Maryland and a program which you will be able to find all of these entities who are receiving these funds by logging on to our News and Events tab at PositiveChangePC.com. You want to scroll down where it says, it gives you a breakdown of all of those entities that will be receiving the federal funding under the Solar for All initiative through EPA's Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And that listing will empower you to know what entity to contact in your state to find out who has and will be the lead entity in the funding of these 60 awards and recipients through the Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And you will be able to scroll down and get that list of entities and who they are, and it breaks it down, and all the information is right there. All of the Solar for All grant recipients, and you'll be able to find that on our website, ladies and gentlemen, here, because what we try to do, we try to bring you news that you can do more than you just use. It's put some cash in your pocket, because that's the bottom line. All this other stuff didn't really amount to a hill of beans, because we're not talking about something that people want to have. This is something you have to have. Gas, water, and electricity. You got to have energy. Everything starts with energy. Everything ends with energy. It determines the cost of everything when it's all said and done. It determines on manufacturing, the whole 9 yards, because we can talk all we want to talk about, how far we want to move forward with these new technologies. But if you don't have a grid system, which would take about $3 trillion to repair and fix, so that's not going to happen. So they're coming up with alternative ways to try to meet the energy demands, and renewables are that one of those solutions, wind and solar, because they're the cheapest that you can get. Brother said to me a long time ago in the struggle, he said, Brother Bethea, the sun comes up over everybody's house every day. Why do we have to pay an electricity bill with something called solar? So with that being said, as we all struggle with why we are moving these things forward, the Greenhouse Gas Initiative, Solar for All project, pilot started here in Washington, D.C. It was started by Mr. Mark Davis, who is a member of the one of the founding members of the National Association of Black and Solar. He is the owner and operator of WDC Solar. I had the privilege of speaking with Mark the other day. He said, well, Ron, I've got 3 crews out. We've been very, very busy, because I thought he may have had shut down his operations here for a minute, because the mayor of Washington, D.C., Bowser, she froze and pulled the entire budget from D.C., the Department of Energy and Environment, for fiscal year 2024 for install for rooftop solar for D.C. residents, which I thought was totally unfair when she said it was because of budget constraints. Well, if it's for budget constraints, you ain't got to have $500 million to give a developer to refurbish a professional basketball arena in Chinatown. And I love basketball and love sports, but, man, they can't beat Dunbar. So with that being said, and I'm talking about D.C. Dunbar. They ain't got nothing coming with Baltimore Dunbar. The Wizards They got the worst records in the league. So, not jumping off that to another tangent, I'm just saying, if the man wants to keep the team downtown, let him keep it downtown. The hell, he's a billionaire. Let him pay for that. The people need help out here. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the Solar for All program that was started in the district, the Biden administration picked up on it, and they put $7 billion into that pilot program. Now, how this pilot program is set up, state and municipality, once they receive the funding, they can do what they do. You understand what I'm saying? They can do what they do. So my position with that is, well, if they do what they do, well, that's a good thing. But let's look at what is really going on with this program and how are you going to qualify for the program to service the LIDACU communities. Now, this says that you must, communities identified at disadvantage by the CEJST, a limited number of additional communities identified by the EJSC stream, the limited supply set off a census, the census block groups that are at or above the 90% of the EJM screen supplemental indexes when compared to the nation or state. This is very convoluted to me. And then it goes on to say, individuals and households with income of below the greater individual household for the metropolitan areas, 80% of area median income, and 200% level. For non-metropolitan areas, 80% of the statewide non-compliance metropolitan area. Properties providing affordable multiple family homes, rents not exceeding 30% of the area median income and lease of half of it. See, this is what's disturbing to me about this program here in Maryland. Why in the hell wouldn't you just simply put the numbers in? If you go to the Maryland Energy Assistance Office here in Prince George's County, Maryland, you can go online. It will tell you that for one person, it is entirely too low. If you make more than $2,510 a month, you cannot apply for energy assistance to get your electricity bill paid for you through the Energy Assistance Program to PEPCO. Let's make it real plain so the goats can get it. If you have a family of two, it can't be more than $3,406. Then it breaks it down to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, they have a number there. Even though the numbers are entirely too low when you compare them with the District of Columbia, because D.C. uses the federal government area median income starts for their program at $58,000 annually. And if you divide that by 12, it's going to be much higher than any $2,510 for one person. And then they give you a number where it starts at around $58,000 a year if you live inside the District of Columbia. Family of 3 is $63,000. So it's a big difference from the state of Maryland to the state to crossing the line into D.C. But the cost of living is not that much cheaper. So I have some serious problems with this formula that they put into this Solar for All program here in the state of Maryland and ask people to figure it out whether you can even qualify. And if you figure it out and you don't qualify, you should be calling me at 646-668-2948. You can go to the website for the Maryland Clean Energy Center, and you'll be able to find that information that I'm giving you. This is why I wanted people to understand. Now, when I looked at their budgets of how they're spending this money, that doesn't make much sense to me either. The state is receiving $62,500,000 for the Solar for All program. They break it down on how much money that they're going to be spending for each aspect of running this program over, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. This is a 5-year plan. For grant administration, they're spending $7,231,145. Let me run those numbers again. $7,231,145. For workforce development training in this grant is $6,050,875. That's $6,050,875. For technical assistance, there's $2,522,125. $2,522,125 for technical assistance. For outreach and education, they have $3,770,855 that they're going to spend over 5 years. Funding and financing totals of $48,000 totals. This totaling this up, it's going to come to $42,875,000 over the 5 years. Now, as I looked at these numbers, I said, well, how many people are they going to actually help? For single-family homes, for the entire state of Maryland, they're talking about 261 installs done in year 1, 261 installs done in year 2, 261 installs done in year 3, 261 installs, 259 installs done in year 5, for a total of 1,303 rooftop installs for this entire state of Maryland, and we have 22 counties, and we're talking about millions of people. So this is a little bit of nothing when you begin to look at will it scratch the surface. Multifamily units, they're talking about 176 units in first year, 352 units in the second year, 352 units in the third year, 352 units in the 4th year, 264 units in the 5th year, for a total of 1,419 units for community. What that means, it says community. All right. Now, it breaks down financing. All these projects. But when you look at the total number of households that they're talking about impacted, this is a drop in the bucket, ladies and gentlemen. So this is out of the first funding phase of the Solar for All program for the state of Maryland. Now, what is interesting about this, there's $19,625,000 still left out of the $62,500,000 if you subtract $42,875,000 from $62,500,000. It leaves $19,625,000. Well, where did that money go? Now, I don't know what kind of funds they want to do or whatever they want to do. But it seems like to me, this is not only help that's coming from Maryland State residents. They could have done a lot damn better without all of this $7 million administrative overhead to give the money out to the residents to put PV systems on their roof. We're the people who need the help. They don't need the help. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on my soapbox about this since I've seen this. That's why I came right back. We normally produce this show on Wednesday. We had some technical difficulties on yesterday. But let me make sure I give you the website where you will be able to go to the Maryland Clean Energy Center's website, and you'll be able to find this information. So, with that being said, you can go to www.mdcleanenergy, one word, mdcleanenergy.org/solar-4-all. Once again, that's the Maryland MD Clean Energy, all one word, .org program, solar-for-all and you'll be able to log on to the website and get this information, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, an hour goes very, very rapidly here on this platform, and I'm going to say to those who have listened to me over the airways of Blog Talk Radio since 2016, the service has been not the greatest, but I think it has been good. We have used this platform to reach millions of people online through this platform, even though the numbers that we show that have actually come to our platform is not in that, nowhere near those numbers. But they're very, very significant numbers, ladies and gentlemen. When you get to talking about you got 8,000 or 9,000 people who have come to a podcast, even over a period of years. Podcasts, they don't get the numbers. You have to have that tied into a radio show and a live stream process. So we are now at YouTube TV. You can go to YouTube and you can, the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC TV radio digital podcast network, and you'll be able to hear our podcast, and we'll be doing our live streams as soon as we get that problem resolved. that will be done before next week. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And we don't want you to meet us here. We want you to beat us here as we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. Until next week, we say go in peace. And remember, as I indicated, we don't want you to meet us back here. We want you to beat us back here as we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America.